In the Buddha's teaching, there is a foundational truth that almost everyone who has approached the Dharma has heard. It is the saying, the mind precedes all phenomena. The mind is chief. The mind fashions them. This is the very first verse of the Dhammapada, one of the most famous and fundamental texts of the entire Pali Canon. Its original phrasing is Manopangama Dhamma Manoseta Manoma. Its meaning is all phenomena, namely our every action, word and thought, are led by the mind, governed by the mind, created by the mind. It sounds simple, but if we reflect a little more deeply, a student of the Dharma will encounter a problem that can be called a paradox, even a bewilderment. If mind creates all karma, all actions, all suffering or happiness, then who is creating the mind? This question is not only a philosophical doubt, but also a turning point on the path to correctly understanding the Dharma. For if we do not understand what mind is, where it arises from, and who controls it, we may fall into wrong view, misconceptions about self, about I, about a creator of mind, and thereby stray from the path of awakening that the Buddha pointed out. In everyday life, whenever we do something, we tend to think, I think like this, I decide like that. I did that because I wanted to. Everything revolves around the word I, and that I in fact is a concept tied to the mind, for without mind there would be no consciousness of I, no thought, emotion or will. Therefore, when we say I create karma, in reality it means mind creates karma. But the crucial issue here is this: does there truly exist an I standing behind the mind, giving orders, controlling, creating everything? Or is I merely an illusion formed by the very flow of mind? If there is no one standing behind mind to control it, does mind then arise naturally out of nothing? Can mind create itself? If not, what initiates mind? And if mind is only the product of conditions, what are those conditions? Where do they begin? And are they endless? In other words, if mind creates karma, is what creates mind another mind? And if so, does this circle have a beginning? This is the question that leads the student of the Dharma to a deeper understanding of dependent origination, non-self, and the krama, operating nature of body, mind, and world. Many people, even long-time Buddhists, have wondered about this. Some ask, if I do evil deeds, it's because of an evil mind. But who made that evil mind? Me or something else? And if something else creates my mind, then is there an entity that controls it, a soul, a divine force, or an unchanging self that creates the mind? If this question is not handled correctly, easily leads to wrong beliefs falling into the two extremes the Buddha called eternalism and annihilationism. One side asserts an eternal soul that masters the mind and creates karma. The other claims mind is random, meaningless, and not worth investigating. But in the Buddha's teaching, there is neither randomness nor eternal, unchanging essence. There is only conditionality. Phenomena arise due to conditions. When the conditions cease, they cease. Mind is also a phenomenon, and a conditioned one. That is, it has arising, ceasing, change, and dependency. Therefore, instead of asking who creates mind, the student should reframe the question properly. From where does mind arise, due to what conditions, and how are those conditions related to karma, suffering, and liberation? Seen from this angle, a door opens toward practice and transformation, instead of falling into delusion by seeking someone who controls the mind. It should also be noted that in the spiritual lives of many people, especially religious believers, the notion of who creates mind is often conflated with the idea that God creates the soul, or that an immutable self directs body, mind. But after awakening, the Buddha directly rejected this. He did not find any eternal soul, nor any self controlling the mind. He saw only a succession of arising and ceasing phenomena, with no creator and no receiver, only cause and effect, only dependent origination. At first this may sound dry and cold, but in truth it is the path to genuine inner freedom. For if there is no one controlling the mind, we can transform the mind without begging for grace from above and without waiting for miracles. In short, the Buddha's opening teaching in the Dhammapada, mind is chief. Mind Fashions opens a series of profound questions about the nature of mind and karma. The question, who is creating the mind, is not merely a philosophical puzzle, but the starting point of inner contemplation. To see the reality of non-self, to see the opportunity for liberation from the cycle of the mind and karma. Yet to fully understand the answer, we must proceed step by step. First, defining correctly what mind is, then how mind arises, and only then seeing clearly that there is no need for a who to create mind, because mind is conditionally arisen. And there is no one who manipulates karma either, because karma is the mind's activity within conditions. This is precisely what will be clarified in the next section. To answer properly the question, who is creating the mind, the prerequisite is to rightly understand what mind is in the Buddha's teaching. If we do not grasp the nature of mind, then any reasoning about a creator of mind or no creator will fall into circularity. So what is mind? In ordinary language, when people say mind, they often think of emotions, thoughts, or even equate mind with the heart, the place that holds good and evil feelings, love and hate. But in the Buddha's teaching, especially in the Abhidhamma, the concept of mind has a much broader and deeper connotation. Mind in Pali is called a Dhamma, that is a phenomenon, but one that belongs to the mental domain. Specifically, mind is awareness. It is the function of registering, reacting, cognizing, thinking, feeling, and so on. Most importantly, mind is not a stationary fixed entity, but a continuous stream, always arising, always ceasing, always changing according to conditions. In other words, mind is not an object or a subject, but a process of operation. The Buddha compared mind to a river, to the wind, to a flash of lightning, always changing, never still. In the connected discourses on the mind, he taught that this mind is often changing, hard to see, subtle, and runs after its objects. The wise, having tamed the mind, dwell in happiness. This saying shows the nature of mind ungraspable, hard to recognize without form, without definite boundaries, and for that very reason it is easy to mistake that there is an I in it. The key point to understand is that mind is not the person that creates karma, but mind itself is the factor that creates karma. Here the word person is a convention, but in the actual operation of phenomena there is no doer. There is only the arising and ceasing of mind, and its mutual interactions with other factors. Also in the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha taught that the mind is a traveler drifting from life to life, being reborn according to karma. Thus, mind is like a passenger rather than a driver, and as a traveler it only follows the current of conditions and cannot determine the route by itself. So does mind arise on its own? The decisive answer is no. Mind does not exist spontaneously, nor is it created by any supernatural force. The Buddha taught that all phenomena arise due to conditions, and mind is the same. In the Compendium of Higher Doctrine, Afidmat Sangaha, an important Abhidhamma treatise, mind is described as a process of arising and ceasing in a causal sequence. Later minds depend on earlier minds together with other conditions such as feeling, perception, and formations in order to arise. This is a very important point. The arising of mind does not require someone to create it. It simply arises when conditions are sufficient. Precisely because mind does not arise by itself and is not created by anyone, the practitioner must clearly see that mind is a conditioned phenomenon, impermanent and not self. In the discourse on the characteristic of non-self, a foundational sutta on non-self, the Buddha taught that mind is not mine, not me, not myself. Why? Because mind is impermanent, subject to decay, and not subject to control. This is a decisive statement. There is no I standing behind mind, and mind cannot be regarded as I. Many people mistakenly think mind is a soul, an eternal spiritual part that controls the body. But Buddhism does not accept this at all. Instead, mind is likened to a fire. Because of factors such as fuel, air, and conditions, it flares up, then goes out, then another flame arises. No flame is I, and there is no someone who creates that flame. There are only conditions. When conditions are present, there is fire. When conditions are exhausted, it goes out. Mind is the same. It is the result of the convergence of many factors, with no owner, no maker, no controller. Another point needs clarification. Mind is not only emotion or thought. It includes the entire process of cognition, reaction, and the creation of karma. In the Abhidharma, analysts have listed 21 different kinds of mind, each with its own characteristics arising in its own circumstances and under its own conditions. For example, when we see something beautiful, a mind of delight arises. That is one kind of mind. When we see something unpleasant, an angry mind arises. That is another kind of mind. Each mind arises due to conditions. No mind exists by itself, and no mind is I. From all the above, it is clear that mind is not the person that creates karma, nor is it the I or the person that creates mind. Mind is only a flow, a non-self process of arising and ceasing that operates according to conditions. Understanding this, we will no longer try to find who creates mind, but will return to observe how mind arises from where and how to transform it. In summary, to answer the question who is creating the mind, we must clearly understand the nature of mind. When we understand that mind is not a person or a subject but only a conditionally arisen phenomenon, the question who creates mind will dissolve by itself. At that point, instead of searching for a creator of mind, the practitioner will focus on observing the mind, seeing the mind clearly, taming the mind, transforming the mind, and being liberated from the mind. That is the highest goal in the Buddha's teaching. Once it is understood that mind is not a static entity, not a person that acts or controls, but only a conditionally arisen stream of phenomena, the question, how does mind create karma, also needs clarification. In the Dharma, mind is not merely a mental phenomenon, it is the core factor that determines the entire process of creating karma, that is creating the causes that lead to suffering or happiness, rebirth or liberation. First, we need to make clear what mind creates karma means. In Buddhism, karma means intentional action. The three basic kinds of action that create karma are bodily karma, verbal karma, and mental karma, that is action through the body, speech, and thought. Among these three mental karma, action through mind is regarded as the root and the foundation that leads to the other two. Therefore, the Buddha taught that the mind leads, the mind is chief, the mind fashions. If someone speaks or acts with an evil mind, suffering follows as the wheel follows the hoof of the ox. If someone speaks or acts with a wholesome mind, happiness follows like a shadow that never departs. Thus, karma is not first produced by body or speech. It is produced when mind gives rise to an intention, a volition, and from that actions or words arise. This also means that karma cannot be separated from mind, and that mind is the direct cause that gives rise to karma. How then does mind create karma? According to the Abhidharma, there are many kinds of mind, but when speaking of the creation of karma, people often emphasize mind with intention. In Pali, this is called sana, that is will or deliberate directing of the mind. In the middle-length discourses in the Discourse on the Diversification of Karmic Results, the Buddha taught bhikkhus, it is by mind that beings create karma. It is by mind that beings are bound. It is by mind that beings are liberated. This passage emphasizes the central role of mind in the entire process of karma and its results. Without mind, or more precisely, without the arising of intention in mind, there is no karma. However, it must be clearly understood that when we say mind creates karma, this does not mean there is an overall mind or a self of mind standing outside and directing karma. On the contrary, each moment of mind that arises is itself a moment of creating karma, and that very moment is the basis of cause and effect. Karma does not require a creator, nor does it require a bearer of karma. It only requires mind intention and conditions, and karma arises. This process does not require an unchanging subject. It only requires the causal operation of mental phenomena. A simple example. When we get angry, the anger is not, I am angry. It is an angry mind that has arisen with intention, and it then leads to action, perhaps harsh speech or harmful behavior. That angry mind is an unwholesome mind, the cause that creates bad karma. If that angry mind does not arise, the karma does not arise. From this, it can be seen that karma depends entirely on mind. Without mind, there is no karma, yet there is also no someone who controls mind. Mind arises due to conditions, so karma also arises due to conditions. This leads to an important insight. Mind creates karma, but there is no I that does the karma. In the Samyutta Nikaya, in the Kamma Samyutta, the Buddha taught that all beings are bound by karma, are mastered by karma, are born from karma, live dependent on karma, and are distinguished by karma. Karma is their refuge. However, it must be understood here that karma is created by mind, yet mind has no owner standing behind it, and there is no fixed person who bears karma. All is only a succession of conditionally arisen factors. No one does, and no one receives, yet cause and effect still operate, and there is still suffering or happiness, depending on whether the mind is unwholesome or wholesome. Some people wonder if there is no one who performs karma then, who receives the results. The Buddha answered this question in many discourses. He taught that beings are a collection of aggregates, form, feeling, perception, formations, and consciousness, and that mind belongs to consciousness and formations operating according to conditions. When a wholesome mind arises and produces wholesome karma, the resultant mind is likewise wholesome, leading to a favorable body and circumstances. But there is no someone directing this process. There is only cause and effect, and cause and effect require no intermediary. A seed sown in the ground sprouts when it meets good soil. No one needs to stand there and command sprout now. Likewise, when mind becomes wholesome, there is wholesome karma. When mind becomes unwholesome, there is unwholesome karma naturally without self. In short, when the Buddha said mind creates karma, he was pointing to a causal reality that needs no doer yet functions precisely. Understanding this helps practitioners avoid clinging to an I that creates karma. Instead, they see the mind, tame the mind, and transform karma by transforming the mind itself. For suffering or happiness does not come from anyone else, but from the mind's own fabrications. Mind is the root of all things. That is why in the Dhammapada, the Buddha teaches, no one defiles another, no one purifies another. It is only through each person's own mind that this is done. Therefore, instead of asking who creates mind, a student of the Dharma should ask by what conditions does this mind arise, and how can those conditions be transformed. Seen in this way, we recognize that mind creates karma, yet it can change, because mind is dependently arisen. It is not fixed, not immutable, and not controlled by anyone. This is the foundation for practice leading to freedom from suffering. Having understood that mind creates karma, while mind itself is not a person or an I that creates the next issue to clarify, is from where does mind arise? Is mind something that arises and ceases by itself, or does it depend on conditions to arise? This is a crucial point in the Buddha's teaching. With this understanding, the practitioner does not cling to mind as self, does not take it as permanent, and thus sees the path to liberation from the cycle of birth and death and karmic results. In the foundational discourses, especially the teaching on dependent origination, the Buddha pointed out that no phenomenon arises by itself or by chance, not even mind. Like all conditioned phenomena, mind arises due to conditions and ceases due to specific conditions. The chain of dependent origination is presented as follows: with ignorance as condition, formations arise. With formations as condition, consciousness arises. With consciousness as condition, name and form arises. With name and form as condition, the six sense bases arise. With the six sense bases as condition, contact arises. With contact as condition, feeling arises. With feeling as condition, craving arises. With craving as condition, clinging arises. With clinging as condition, becoming arises. With becoming as condition, birth arises. With birth as condition, there is aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, and despair. In that 12-linked chain, we see that mind, specifically consciousness, arises from formations and ignorance. Mind does not exist on its own. It is the outcome of past karma of formations and of not seeing reality correctly, which is ignorance. Here, consciousness does not mean a monolithic mind, but the faculty of knowing that arises when conditions are present. That consciousness, together with name and form, forms the basis for the entire mental life of beings. It is important to note that consciousness or mind does not arise from a soul or from absolute free will, but from intentional actions in the past, driven by ignorance, which means not seeing the true nature of phenomena. That very ignorance conditions formations, which in turn condition consciousness. And thus, the stream of mind continues, with no discernible beginning and no clear end. Thus, the arising of mind is a result, not a first cause, and there is no one who creates mind. There are only conditions. Consider a simple example of how mind is formed. When we see a beautiful image, the eye's contact with that image is the sense base and contact. From contact, feeling arises, we experience pleasantness. From that feeling, liking arises in the mind. There is no I ordering the mind to like. It is simply that given contact and feeling, liking arises. If consciousness does not arise, there is no knowing. Without knowing, there is no liking or aversion. Thus, the arising of mind depends entirely on conditions. There is no one controlling it. In the Abhidhamma, this is analyzed in greater detail. Mind is divided into causal minds and resultant minds. The causal minds are those capable of creating karma and typically involve intention. Resultant minds are those that merely receive the results of past karma and do not create new karma. There is also the bhavainga, the underlying life continuum that operates when no distinct active mind is present. Each moment of mind arises with preceding moments as its conditions, forming an unbroken stream with no absolute first beginning. A vivid image used by the commentators to describe mind is the flame passed from one torch to another. The second flame is not the first, yet it arises dependent on the first flame and on fuel. In the same way, a new moment of mind is not the old one, but it arises dependent on the old and on other conditions. In that process, there is no one who passes the flame. There is only the flame being transmitted from one set of conditions to another. From all of this, an important insight emerges. Mind arises due to conditions. No one creates mind yet. The stream of mind continues, and karmic results still arise from mind. There is no one who is born, no one who acts, and yet there is birth, there is action, and there are results. This is the mark of non-self, but not the denial of causality. For this reason, when people asked, "Who creates mind?" the Buddha responded with silence, or by explaining dependent origination. There is no who, there is only conditioned arising. When asked whether mind is one or many, he did not answer either because the question was wrongly framed. Mind is neither one nor many. It is a process without self-elusive and only discernible through insight. In sum, mind neither arises by itself nor is it created by someone. Mind arises due to conditions, ignorance, formations, consciousness, contact, feeling, craving, clinging, becoming, and the whole 12-fold chain. Understanding this, the practitioner stops looking for a maker of mind and instead investigates the conditions that fashion mind, thereby transforming those conditions so that wholesome minds arise, unwholesome minds cease, and liberating mind, states appear. This is the heart of practice to understand mind, see mind, and transform mind. No creator is needed. When the conditions are right, the mind will be right. When we understand that mind arises due to conditions neither self-existent nor created by anyone, another question naturally arises. If there is no person creating mind, why is there the feeling I am thinking? I am angry. I am happy. Why? Do people feel there is a self-controlling and mastering the mind? This is an extremely subtle point in the Dhamma and the deep root of samsaric suffering. It is precisely self-clinging, the belief in I, that gives rise to craving, ill will, delusion, and countless karmic obstructions. In the discourse on the characteristic of non-self delivered soon after his awakening, the Buddha taught very clearly, mind is not mine, not me, not myself. If mind were mine, we could command it, mind do not crave. Mind do not be angry. Mind do not be deluded. But because the mind does not obey us, craving arises when we do not want it to, and anger arises when we cannot prevent it. Mind, therefore, is not self. It is precisely in that verse that the Buddha exposed the illusion of a self that masters the mind. If there truly were a person controlling the mind, we ought to have the power to adjust every thought, emotion, and intention at will. But what is the reality? The mind thinks in its own way. Emotions arise uninvited. Intentions come and go like the wind beyond our control. This is the clearest evidence that there is no one who rules the mind, only the mind as a stream that arises and ceases according to its own conditions. Therefore, in Buddhism, dismantling the illusion of self and of a controller of the mind is central to the path of practice. When one no longer clings to an I that creates karma, one stops identifying with the mind, no longer becomes its slave, and then tames the mind correctly, not by force, but by wisdom and mindfulness. But why do people take the mind to be self? Why is the illusion of self so powerful? This is what the Buddha called self-view, the mistaken seeing of an immutable self standing behind body and mind as master. The deep cause of self-view is ignorance, the failure to see the conditioned and non-self nature of mind, which leads to the mistaken belief in a controller. A simple example: when we drive, if we are not attentive, we think that we are the one driving. In fact, driving is a sequence of automatic behaviors. Hands on the steering wheel, eyes on the road, foot on the pedal, all coordinating smoothly. If we observe carefully, we will see there is no separate driver standing apart from those actions, only a trained and familiar process at work. In the same way, thinking, feeling, and acting are sequences of processes that require no controller, only dependent conditions, habits, and circumstances. In the Abhidhamma, mind not only has no owner, it is analyzed as a collection of many mental factors such as contact feeling, perception, volition, mindfulness, concentration, wisdom, greed, delusion, and so on. Whenever a moment of mind arises, these mental factors arise with it. The important point is that these factors arise according to conditions. None of them is I or mine. This leads to a very deep truth. What we call I am thinking or I am feeling is only a label imposed by the habitual clinging to self upon a stream of arising and ceasing mental factors. It must also be emphasized that the feeling I am in control is powerful, but that feeling is not proof of the existence of self. In the connected discourses on the characteristic of self, the Buddha says, "The uninstructed ordinary person, not seeing the arising and cessation of body, feeling, mind, and phenomena, regards this as mine, this as I am, this as myself." The practitioner, seeing arising and ceasing, does not cling, does not grasp, does not attach. Thus, the arising and cessation of mind is the key to breaking self-clinging. When a meditator observes the mind in meditation, it becomes clear that mind arises and ceases without stop. No mind endures forever, and no mental stream is self. Each moment a new mind arises and then ceases, followed by another. There is no gap yet. There is also no one outside the mind who controls it. This process is called the continuity of the mental stream, or pavanga, operating without a master. From there, the practitioner gradually sees that mind is only Dhamma, an arisen phenomenon without owner, without soul, without self. When one no longer takes the mind as self, one is freed from craving, no longer clings to emotions and thoughts, no longer fears when an unwholesome mind arises, and does not become arrogant when a wholesome mind arises. One knows that all is dependently arisen and not self. There is no doer and no receiver, only phenomena operating according to cause and effect. In summary, the feeling I am creating the mind is an illusion. Mind is not created by anyone, nor is it self. Mind is a process that arises due to conditions, without owner and without soul. Seeing this, the practitioner stops looking for someone to control the mind and instead contemplates the dependent origination of mind and tames it with wisdom. There is no forcing, no clinging, no vanity, no remorse. This is the path that leads to freedom from suffering, freedom from the illusion of self, and to living with a pure and unbound mind. When it is clearly seen that mind has no owner and no self, the next step in contemplation is to understand mind as a continuous flow, without interruption, without a center, and without a controller. This is what the Buddha repeatedly taught in the scriptures. Mind is not a fixed entity. It is a stream that changes without pause, continuously arising and ceasing without a starting point, without an owner and without a controller. In the connected discourses on mind, the Buddha describes it as follows. This mind, monks, often drifts, is hard to grasp, trembles after its object has no shape, has no form, is hard to restrain and hard to tame. With such a mind, who masters it, who stands behind it? The answer is no one. There is no I in the mind. Mind is not self and not mine. A classic image used by practitioners to describe mind is a river in which water flows without ever stopping. No drop of water is self, and no stretch of river is mine. In particular, nowhere in that river is there a control center. There is no boat master and no swimmer, only water that flows. The slope of the land, falling rain and blowing wind are the conditions. Mind is the same. It needs no controller. When conditions are present, it arises. With other conditions, it ceases. Because mind is a stream and has no owner, students of the Dharma must be careful. Do not mistake an unchanging my mind, and do not think there is an I that uses the mind. In truth, mind belongs to no one and is commanded by no one. Mind is a phenomenon that operates according to cause and effect. There is no soul and no self-nature. This is a truth that is hard to accept for those who still nurture the notion, I am the thinker, I am the master of my life. Yet that very I is the root of suffering, because it makes us cling to the mind, cling to thoughts, identify with feelings, and from that arise craving, ill will, delusion, karmic obstructions, and rebirth. Some ask if mind is a stream without a subject who is reborn, who bears results, who goes from life to life. This is a common question, and the Buddha answered with very concrete examples. He taught that just as a flame passes from one lamp to another, the light continues, but no entity goes from place to place. In the same way, mind is reborn through the cycle of existence. No one is reborn. There is only a stream of mind that continues according to conditions and karma. Another example is a forest fire that spreads. One flame is not the other, yet they follow one another. There is no person who passes the fire along. There are only the conditions of wind and fuel, and then it spreads. Mind is the same. From life to life and from moment to moment, it continues, yet there is no self in it. And importantly, there is no first point and no final end, only the unceasing operation of phenomena. Mind is one part of phenomena. Therefore, mind also has no absolute beginning. There is no first soul and no first creator. This is the point the Buddha taught very clearly. The beginning of this mind and the beginning of samsara cannot be seen. For this mind is beginningless, without a first point. There is only a stream of mind that continues. So if there is no one in control and no one who creates the mind, why does the mind still function with order? Why are there still cause and effect and good and evil? This is the marvel of the Buddha's teaching. Cause and effect do not require a master, nor a punisher, or a rewarder. As long as there are conditions, results will arise. Mind is the cause, karma is the condition, the fruit will ripen. Like a seed sown in the earth, with water and light it sprouts. There is no need for anyone to command it. This also shows that although there is no owner of the mind, there is still responsibility for karmic results. This responsibility does not belong to me, but to the continuing stream of mind. A later mind receives the result of an earlier mind. There is no receiver, yet results occur. It is like someone felling a tree. The energy of the axe makes the tree fall without anyone giving an order. There is only action and result. Mind is the action, result is the consequence. No controller is needed, only the right conditions. With this understanding, the practitioner no longer searches for a creator of mind, but observes the mental stream, seeing it arise, seeing it cease, seeing it operate without anyone commanding it. From that, a mind of letting go arises, without attachment, without clinging, without identifying with the mind, without fear when an unwholesome mind arises, and without arrogance when a wholesome mind arises, because one knows that all is not self and all is dependently arisen. In summary, mind is an unceasing flow. It has no owner, no maker, no soul that controls it. Understanding this, the practitioner lets go of self-clinging, lives mindfully with each mental event, and is not dragged about by the delusion, I think, I want, I feel. This is the doorway to inner freedom, and freedom from suffering, because one is no longer bound by the illusion I am the mind, or the mind is me. From clearly seeing that mind is a stream without an owner, without a center, and without a controller, a major question appears. Why have so many people, traditions and religions from ancient times until now believed that there is an unchanging soul, an eternal self that controls the mind and creates karma? This is a widespread belief among humanity, not only in the East but also in the West, the belief that there is a self standing behind thoughts, feelings and actions, directing everything and existing forever. How does Buddhism regard this issue? Why does the Buddhist teaching deny self and deny soul, and hold that mind is not self? First, it must be understood that clinging to I, to an unchanging self, is a fundamental human instinct, partly because of the fear of dissolution, fear of impermanence, fear of death, fear of non-existence, and partly because of the psychological need to control, to master one's life, to make the self eternal. For this reason, many religions have proposed the concept of an immortal soul, existing before birth and continuing after death, as the subject that controls the body, creates the mind, and bears karmic results. On the surface, this seems reasonable, comforting, and easy to accept. Yet in the light of the Buddha's wisdom, that concept does not stand and cannot hold in reality. In the Alagadupama Sutta, the snake simile, the Buddha directly rejected the notion of a soul. He taught that clinging to a self is a wrong grasp, and believing that a soul controls body and mind is ignorance. Mind and body are not self, not mine, not what I am. The Buddha also gave an example. One who clings to self is like a person who holds a poisonous snake incorrectly and is bitten and suffers. This is a clear warning. Clinging to self is not only an intellectual mistake, it is the root of all suffering. Why is that? Because when we believe there is an I that controls the mind, every mental defilement becomes my defilement, and every pain becomes my pain. We begin to cling to the mind. For example, when anger arises, one who clings to self will think, I am angry, I suffer because I was insulted, and from that come blame, resentment, revenge, and the creation of more karma. Meanwhile, one who does not cling to self sees that anger is arising due to contact, due to wrong perception, due to displeasing feeling. It is not I who am angry, it is simply that an angry mind is arising. This very separation from the mind without identification or attachment prevents further karma from being created, prevents suffering because of the mind, and prevents being led by ignorance. The paradox is that people still want an I. They want a master of the mind in order to feel safe, in control, and steady. They do not want to accept that mind arises and ceases without an owner, because that would mean facing the truth that everything is impermanent, that no one guarantees anything, that nothing is eternal, that there is no absolute refuge. Because of this fear, people believe in soul, in God, in a creator, in an eternal self. But Buddhism teaches that truth is truth. Whether we like it or not, whether it is pleasant or not, mind is still not self. Only when one accepts the non-self nature of mind can a practitioner be freed from suffering. One no longer tries to grasp what cannot be grasped, no longer tries to control what cannot be controlled, and no longer falls into despair over unfulfilled expectations. Another important point: if the mind has a controller, where is that person? Who is the master of mind? Who creates a new mind? If there is an eternal soul, where is it located within the mind? And why can it not prevent greed, anger, and delusion? The Buddha taught that a soul cannot be found in the body, in the mind, in feeling, in perception, or in consciousness, because all are not self. Everything is only phenomena that arise and cease without a center, without a master, without an I anywhere. In the Abhidhamma, the operation of the mind is analyzed very clearly. Mind arises according to conditions. There is no mind that is a root, and there is no mind that is a soul. It is like an electric lamp that flickers on and off continuously while the light continues. There is no light that is a soul. There is only current, bulb switch, and conditions. Mind is the same. An earlier mind conditions a later mind. A wholesome mind conditions wholesome states. An unwholesome mind conditions unwholesome states. There is no someone within it, only causality and dependent arising. From this, the practitioner needs to understand that belief in a soul, in an eternal self, is a major obstacle to the path of liberation. Why? Because it makes people cling, grasp fear, loss, fear cessation, fear non-existence, and from that come craving, clinging, becoming, and rebirth. Conversely, when it is clearly seen that mind is not self, the practitioner lets go of self-clinging lives, wakefully does not identify with the mind, does not suffer because of the mind, and thereby enters inner freedom. In summary, there is no one who creates the mind, and there is no soul that controls the mind. Mind is a phenomenon that is not self and is dependently arisen. Belief in self is only an illusion born of ignorance that leads to the suffering of samsara. With this understanding, the practitioner turns the mind from delusion to awakening, from clinging to release, from suffering to liberation. Having clearly seen that mind is dependently arisen, without a controller, without a soul behind it, and without a self in charge, the next step is to understand the specific mechanism by which the mind arises, the conditions under which a new mind appears, and the principles by which that arising operates, if mind is not created by anyone. This is a core issue in practice. Only by understanding the mechanism of mind-making can we practice correctly in order to tame the mind, transform the mind, and free ourselves from the bondage of karma. In the Abhidhamma, mind never arises alone. It always arises together with mental factors, cetasikas, that is, supporting elements such as feeling, perception, formations, contact, attention, mindfulness, wisdom, greed, aversion, delusion, and so on. Every time a moment of mind arises, at least 7 compulsory factors accompany it. These are called the 7 universal mental factors. Among them, feeling, perception, and formations are 3 key elements that serve as conditions for the arising of the next moment of mind. Specifically, according to the teaching, each newly arisen mind depends not only on the previous mind, but also on feeling the sensation born of contact with the world, on perception, the registering, imaging, and remembering of the object, and on formations, volitional activities, inner impulses that propel the mind to continue. These 3, together with contact, form the conditional basis for a new mind to arise. Thus, the arising of mind is the result of conditions. There is no I in it, only feeling, perception, and formations serving as conditions. A practical example: when you hear a compliment, the ear's contact with sound gives rise to pleasant feeling. You feel happy. From that perception arises you think the person values you, and then formations arise, the intention to respond, liking, desire. These 3 elements condition the arising of a liking mind, followed by clinging, craving, and possessiveness. That entire sequence unfolds rapidly and seamlessly, without anyone directing it. There are only conditions: contact, feeling, perception, formations, and then mind arises. Similarly, when the eye sees something unpleasant, such as garbage, painful feeling arises and you feel irritated. Perception arises, you recall being bothered by such a scene before. And then formations arise, resistance, anger, the urge to remove it. Again, anger arises without any command, purely due to conditions: contact, feeling, perception, formations. Without wisdom to observe, we will cling to, I am angry. create karma from the angry mind and fail to recognize that all of this is the impersonal operation of phenomena. This leads to an important understanding. Every new mind depends on pre-existing conditions. No mind arises spontaneously, and no one fabricates the mind. When conditions are sufficient, it arises. When conditions cease, it ceases. The Abhidhamma enumerates 24 kinds of conditions. Among them, the main conditions that generate mind are root condition, object condition, contact condition, feeling condition, perception condition, formation condition, and continuity condition. This sounds complex, but it can be grasped simply. The previous mind is the root condition for the next mind. The object is the object condition. Contact provides the occasion for mind to arise. Feeling and perception nurture it. Formations drive its arising, and the continuity of the mental stream underlies it all. One point must be emphasized in the process of arising. The later mind is not the earlier mind, yet its presence depends on that earlier mind. It is like a flame passed from one torch to another. The new flame is not the old flame, but it arises dependent on the old and on fuel. No one creates the fire and no one controls it. There are only fire, wind, wood conditions, and then there is burning. Mind is the same, no one creates it. There is no I that makes it. There are only conditions, contact, feeling, perception, formations, and then mind arises. In the scriptures, the Buddha stressed this in many discourses. In the Samyutta Nikaya's teaching root of the teaching Mulap Sutta, he taught that the uninstructed worldling, not seeing the dependent arising of phenomena, clings. This is mine, this I am, this is myself. The noble one, however, contemplates this name and form, arises due to conditions. There is no self, no controller. Thus mind is part of name and form arisen by conditions, leaving no place for the presence of I. A practice of observing the mind in meditation allows the practitioner to see this clearly, not through theory, but through direct experience. When greed arises, the practitioner recognizes a greedy mind is arising, and then investigates the conditions from which it arose: contact, feeling, perception, formations. Seeing the conditions, the practitioner no longer clings to the greedy mind, no longer thinks I am greedy, but sees greed as just a phenomenon arising and ceasing. Not me, not needing a creator, merely conditional. From here, the practitioner truly tames the mind not by force or suppression, but by wisdom, by understanding the mechanism of mind-making. Then by transforming the conditions, the mind transforms on its own. This is the core of practice. See the mind understand. The conditions transform the conditions. The mind changes. Karma changes. Suffering ceases. And it all begins with the truth that mind has no maker, only dependent arising. There is no self, no soul, only the operation of phenomena. In short, the mechanism that makes mind is a subtle chain of dependent conditions. It needs no controller and no I issuing commands. As long as there are contact, feeling, perception, and formations, mind arises. Understanding this, the practitioner stops searching for a creator of mind and instead contemplates conditions, sees phenomena, lives with mindfulness. Thus the mind is tamed naturally, without coercion, toward genuine liberation. Understanding that mind arises due to conditions is the theoretical foundation. But to fully penetrate this truth, one must directly observe and experience the stream of arising and ceasing in daily life, especially in meditation. If one merely knows that mind is non-self and conditionally arisen without directly seeing it in oneself, that knowledge is still intellectual and lacks the power to transform habits, self-clinging, and the suffering bound up with mind. Therefore, the Buddha taught the method of mindfulness, of mind cittanupassana, observing the mind as one of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. In the Satipatthana Sutta, he teaches one contemplates a mind with greed as a mind with greed, a mind without greed as a mind without greed, a mind with aversion, with delusion, distracted, concentrated, liberated, not liberated, knowing each just so. Though brief, this passage contains deep practice, helping the practitioner see the truth about mind, not through reasoning, but through direct realization. During meditation, when the mind arises, The practitioner does not interfere or react, but simply notes, a greedy mind is arising, or an angry mind is arising. That noting is not I am knowing, but bare awareness, non-attached, non-identifying. Then one clearly sees the greedy mind arises and ceases. There is no need to drive it away, no need for a master. With correct observation, the mind ceases on its own. This experience is a turning point in practice, because it dismantles the illusion I am controlling the mind. Formerly, we often thought, I am managing my mind. I want it calm. I try not to be angry. The more we try, the more agitated it becomes, the angrier we get. Practicing correctly, we realize there is no need to control the mind. We need only see it clearly, and it transforms. Then a truth appears: there is no one inside the mind, no one who creates it. There is only mind arising and ceasing incessantly according to conditions. This is a direct experience of non-self. For that reason, the Buddha taught that one should not merely believe words but verify them in one's own body and mind, through mindfulness of body feelings, mind and phenomena, seeing that everything is just phenomena without self. This process is called insight vipassana, seeing things as they are without imagination. A concrete example: while sitting in meditation, a thought about the past suddenly arises, perhaps a pleasant or painful memory. The practitioner observes the mind is remembering the past. Without awareness, one will immediately identify I am remembering, and from that identification arise attachment, craving, and suffering. But if mindful, the practitioner clearly sees a thought is only mind arising and ceasing, controlled by no one with no I in it, just the stream of mind passing through. This seeing cuts attachment, prevents further karma, and the mind grows calm. Another experience: when a surge of anger comes, an untrained person will immediately react. I was insulted. I am angry at that person. And then harsh speech and harmful actions arise, creating unwholesome karma. But one practicing mindfulness will see an angry mind is arising. An unpleasant feeling is arising, an urge to retaliate is arising. Seeing this clearly, the practitioner is not dragged along, does not identify, and the angry mind fades in mindfulness. No one needs to control it. No forcing is required. It is by seeing rightly that the mind transforms. Therefore, the Buddha taught, whoever tames their own mind is freed from Mara. Here, taming does not mean using force. It means wisdom that sees the mind clearly. When it is seen that mind arises due to conditions created by no one and mastered by no one, the practitioner no longer tries to control the mind, but lives wakefully tracks conditional arising and lets the mind transform through lucidity. The wondrous thing is that when there is no longer clinging to mind, the mind becomes tranquil, no longer agitated, no longer unwholesome. Conversely, the more one tries to control and identifies with the mind, the more chaotic and suffering it becomes. This is a great lesson that can only be fully understood through meditative experience. At that point, the practitioner deeply realizes there is no me in the mind, no me controlling the mind. There is only mind arising and ceasing. Seeing correctly is liberation. In short, observing the mind in meditation is the direct means to see non-self. Mind arises due to conditions. No one needs to create it. Mind ceases when conditions end. No one is in control. The whole process is just phenomena with no soul, no self, no I. Seeing this clearly, the practitioner abandons the illusion of controlling the mind, lives with mindful awareness, and thereby is freed from suffering and attains true peace. Having directly experienced in insight meditation that mind arises due to conditions, needs no controller, has no creator, and has no me in charge. The core question of this topic returns at a deeper level. If no one creates the mind, then who creates karma? If mind creates karma, but mind is not a person, how should we correctly understand the operation of karma in the light of non-self? This is an extremely subtle point. Without correct understanding, we easily fall into two wrong extremes. One, asserting an immutable soul that rules karma eternalism. Two, denying causality entirely because there is no doer annihilationism. Buddhism accepts neither extreme, but makes it clear Mind creates karma without needing a person to create it. There is no one standing behind mind directing it, yet karma still exists and results still occur through the working of conditions. This is a distinctive feature of the Buddha's teaching, for it simultaneously upholds the principle of absolute non-self and affirms the precision and inevitability of the law of cause and effect. That is, no one acts and no one receives, yet there is still acting and receiving. In accordance with dependent origination in the middle-length discourses, in the discourse on the types of karma, the Buddha teaches that whoever does wholesome karma receives wholesome results. Whoever does unwholesome karma receives unwholesome results. At first, hearing it sounds as if there is a doer and a receiver, but the Buddha also clearly taught that that person is only a linguistic convention. In reality, there are only phenomena operating with no true self. This is clarified in the Samyutta Nikaya, in the Kamavagga, where the Buddha teaches mind, leads karma arises from mind, and results arise from karma. There is no controller, only the continuity of cause and effect. Understood this way, we see clearly mind creates karma, but it is not I who create karma. Rather, intention arises in the mind, action follows, and karma is formed. Results arise thereafter without needing a person to act. Just as fire burns a forest, there is no one directing the fire yet. Burning still happens because of wind, dryness, and sparks. Mind is the same. Intention arises, action follows, karma is produced, no one commands it, yet results are precise. The crucial point is this: although mind is not a person that creates karma, it is still the cause of karma. In the Abhidharma, this is clarified with the notions of wholesome mind, unwholesome mind, rootless mind, resultant mind, and functional mind. Among these, only wholesome and unwholesome minds can create karma because they include intention, cetana, as the cause that brings results. The subtlety is that this intention is not the free will of a self. It is a mental factor that arises due to conditions. No one owns it. It is simply the operation of phenomena. For example, when compassion arises and you want to help someone, a wholesome mind appears, intention to give is present, then acts of helping occur, and wholesome karma is created. Later, good results arrive. But in that process, there is no I doing good. There is only a wholesome mind arising with intention, action, and result. No decider is required, only sufficient conditions. A wholesome mind arises, wholesome karma occurs, wholesome results come. All of it is phenomena without self. Conversely, when anger arises, a mind of aversion appears, intention to harm arises, harmful action occurs, and unwholesome karma is formed. Yet here too there is no I doing evil. There is only an angry mind, intention, karma, and result. Understanding this, we do not identify with the mind, we neither blame ourselves nor become conceited. We see clearly that wholesome and unwholesome minds are conditionally arisen. There is no I, and yet karma is still created, and results still arise, hence the need for mindfulness. This frees us from fatalism. If there were, an unchanging self, karma would also be unchanging, and could not be altered. But when we see that mind is non-self, and karma is non-self, then karma can be transformed, because the mind can be transformed. That is why the Buddha taught that practice is the transformation of karma through transforming the mind. No controller is needed. By observing the mind abandoning unwholesome states and cultivating wholesome states, bad karma does not arise, good karma ripens, and liberation draws near. Another point to understand: karma is not destiny, not a punitive force. It is the mental process from cause to result, needing no judge. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha teaches beings create karma and then reap the results themselves. No one defiles us, no one purifies us. It is only through our own mind that this is done. This is a great declaration of spiritual freedom. No one owns our mind. No one controls our karma. Only our own mindfulness and wisdom transform the mind, transform karma, and free us from suffering. In summary, mind creates karma, but there is no person who creates karma. There are only phenomena in operation. Mind is not self, karma is not ours, and results are not something I receive, yet everything occurs precisely according to conditions. With this understanding, we live mindfully. Do not identify with the mind. Do not become lazy by thinking no one does anything, and do not become arrogant by thinking I create everything. Instead, we live awake, humble, and responsible for our mental states, knowing that this very mind will be the cause of karma, and that karma will be the result experienced by us. Not because we are the doer, but because we are living within the stream of mind. Continuing the line of thought from the previous section, we have seen clearly that mind creates karma without needing a creator. Karma yields results without needing a receiver. Everything operates according to an objective law of cause and effect, with no one in charge and no external coordinator. Thus, a crucial question arises: if mind, karma, and result are all non-self, is the operation of samsara real or illusory? So how should a practitioner understand rebirth and karmic results in the light of non-self? First, it must be affirmed that mind is dependently arisen, karma is dependently arisen, and results are dependently arisen. None of these three is me, mine, or myself. In the Samyutta Nikaya Kamma, Samyutta Kamagga, the Buddha states clearly, directed by mind, karma arises with mind, results ripen from karma. Yet mind is not self, karma is not self, results are not self, they are only phenomena arising and ceasing in succession. Then where is the doer? Where is the receiver? The answer is there is no real person, there is only the continuity of phenomena like a flame passed from one candle to another. The light continues, yet no entity moves, no one is in it. By convention we say, I do wholesome karma and I receive good results, but that is merely worldly language. In the nature of phenomena, there is no I at all, there is only mind, karma, and results in succession. An easy example: when you sow a seed in the ground, you do not need anyone to control it. If the seed meets soil, water, and light, it sprouts flowers and bears fruit. The sower is only a condition. The growth proceeds naturally by conditions. Likewise, when a wholesome mind arises, it creates wholesome karma, and good results appear. There is no one who rewards, there is no one who bears results. When conditions are complete, the fruit ripens by itself. What matters is that the sower may be gone, yet the plant still grows. In the same way, the mind that created karma has ceased, but the result still comes because conditions remain and the stream of phenomena continues. A key concept in Buddhism is continuity, the uninterrupted succession of phenomena that requires no subject standing behind them. In the Abhidhamma, mind arises in a chain of continuity. The later mind arises due to the earlier mind. The earlier mind has ceased, yet because conditions persist, the later mind appears. It is like waves following one another on the surface of water. There is no root wave, there is no one creating waves, yet waves continue because of wind and water as conditions. Mind, karma, and result are the same, a non-self succession without a person. From this we understand that mind, karma, and results do not need a person in order to operate. Everything proceeds according to cause and effect, without anyone creating or receiving. There is only the natural operation of continuity. This is a major difference between Buddhism and other systems of thought. Buddhism has no concept of a fixed person who creates karma, and no soul that receives the result. There is only a non-self mental process in which karma gives rise to results. So if there is no person who goes through rebirth, this is the classic question, and the Buddha answered it clearly. There is no one who goes yet, there is rebirth. There is no person who is reborn, yet rebirth still occurs. Like a flame passed along like waves, following one another like a river that flows. No drop is old, no drop is me, yet there is water flowing. This answer leads us to the insight that birth and death are real, yet there is no I who is born or dies. Karma is real and results are real, yet there is no person who acts or receives. This is extremely subtle. Karmic results are real, but self is an illusion. Rebirth is real, but the one who is reborn is not real. Therefore, the practitioner must be careful not to fall into annihilationism, thinking, There is no me, therefore there are no karmic results and no rebirth. On the contrary, one should see that, although there is no I, karmic results still operate, and rebirth still continues due to the continuity of mind and karmic conditions, not due to a person who rules. This also leads to a practical consequence. Karma can be transformed because mind is non-self and can change its conditions and direction. If mind were a fixed, self-karma would also be fixed and training would be impossible. Since mind is dependently arisen, karma is dependently arisen, it can be cultivated, transformed, and liberated. That is why the Buddha taught train the mind, for mind is the root of karma. When the mind is well trained, wholesome karma arises. When it is untrained, unwholesome karma arises. In summary, mind creates karma, karma gives rise to results, and results condition mind in succession. All are phenomena. There is no someone in them, yet they still operate and still bring suffering or happiness according to conditions. With this understanding, the practitioner no longer seeks who acts, who receives, but observes dependent arising lives, wakefully transforms the mind, creates conditions for wholesome karma cuts, conditions for unwholesome karma, and escapes the practitioners for unwholesome karma, to round of rebirth, not by force, but by the wisdom that sees non-self. Once it is understood that mind, karma, and results are all non-self, and operate by conditions without a person who creates, and without a person who receives, a common question arises: do humans have freedom or not? Do we have free will to choose to transform karma, to decide actions? Or is everything only a chain of dependent, arising with no one in charge, no one deciding, and no one responsible? This is a sensitive and practical issue because it relates directly to how we live, how we practice, and whether we can shape our destiny. Buddhism approaches this question in a very practical, non-extreme way. The Buddha rejected absolute fatalism and did not affirm absolute free will. Instead, he pointed out that our mind and actions are influenced by past karma and by present conditions, yet within that there is room for transformation through mindfulness and wisdom. Freedom, therefore, is not unlimited freedom. It is conditional freedom, freedom within the framework of cause and effect. The Buddha taught, one does evil oneself, one defiles oneself, one avoids evil oneself, one purifies oneself. Purity or defilement is up to oneself. No one can purify another. This teaching affirms that no one else can save us, and no one rules us, rather our own mind through our actions. Mindfulness and wisdom determines karma and its results. However, the Buddha did not say a person has absolute power to do anything. He said, purify yourself, which means one can do so if there is sufficient mindfulness and wisdom. This shows that freedom in Buddhism is freedom within conditions. The mind does not arise randomly. The present mind is influenced by past mind, by habits, and by old karma. Yet it can be adjusted if there is mindfulness, which is non-attached, knowing, and wisdom, which is seeing the arising and ceasing of mind as non-self. In other words, will is not I. Decide as I please. It is a spiritual capacity that can be developed to steer the mind in line with causality. A simple example: a person has the habit of getting angry. When insulted, the anger mind arises easily, because the supporting conditions for anger are strong from the past. If that person practices mindfulness, then when contact occurs, they recognize feeling, perception, and formations. They do not react, and the angry mind has no conditions to arise. Thus, although there is old karma, a new, unwholesome mind does not arise thanks to mindfulness. This is freedom within conditions. It is not absolute, yet it can change. And this is precisely what makes practice valuable, not surrender, but transforming karma by transforming mind. Buddhism calls this transformation self-training, the self-education of the inner life. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha says, whoever trains their own mind accomplishes what is hard to do. Whoever lives mindfully saves themselves from suffering. This demonstrates that although mind has no controller, it can be trained through mindfulness and insight, so that wholesome minds arise and unwholesome minds cease. This is freedom in the deepest sense. Not that everything goes according to desire, but the ability to live awake, not led by the mind, not bound by past karma. However, this is not easy because such freedom requires effort, energy, and wisdom. There is no I that masters the mind, yet there must be diligent wakefulness in each moment to see the mind, understand the conditions, and adjust the flow of consciousness. Therefore, in the Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddha teaches right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These three cultivate spiritual capacities and form the basis of spiritual freedom. Not free will in the ordinary sense, but the ability to tame the mind and be freed from karmic force through understanding the truth. Another important point is that spiritual freedom neither denies past karma nor surrenders to it. Buddhism teaches that past karma shapes tendencies, circumstances, and feelings. But if the present mind has wisdom, it can respond differently and not create new karma. For example, illness may be old karma, yet if the present mind is patient without anger or despair, no new karma is formed, and the painful result does not intensify. Conversely, if the mind resists and complains, new karma arises, and suffering piles upon suffering. From this we can understand mind is the root of karma, but there is no me controlling it. There is only the capacity of mindfulness and wisdom that helps the mind choose wholesome conditions and abandon unwholesome ones, thereby creating good karma and reducing bad karma. This is freedom within the limits of causality. There is no self yet. There is the capacity to be awake and to save oneself without relying on anyone else. In short, Buddhism does not reject freedom. It sees freedom as a conditional capacity within the mind's dependently arisen processes. There is no self, but with mindfulness and wisdom, one can change the mind, change karma, and change one's life. Understanding this, a practitioner is neither pessimistic about old karma nor arrogant about being in control, but humble, awake, and mindful in each moment. For they know that each mental moment is precisely where happiness or suffering, samsara, or liberation is decided. Once it is clear that freedom in Buddhism is not doing whatever one likes, but the ability to transform the mind through mindfulness and wisdom, the question arises: how should a practitioner relate to the mind? What should be done to transform the mind, create wholesome karma, end unwholesome karma, and move toward liberation? The answer does not lie in theory, but in moment-to-moment practice, observing the stream of mind and knowing clearly that what we must do is not to search for who creates the mind, but to learn how to live awake right when mind arises. This is the crux. Practice is not sitting and thinking about the mind, but living with the mind in mindfulness. See clearly the mind as it arises and ceases. Do not cling, chase, or attach. Those who have not trained will often identify with the mind. For example, when anger arises, they think I am angry. When anxiety arises, they think I am afraid, and from that come afflictions, karma, and suffering. But with mindfulness, one sees an angry mind is arising, an anxious mind is arising. It is not me. It is only mind phenomena arising and ceasing. No need to control, only to see clearly. For this reason, the entire discipline taught by the Buddha, from insight meditation and serenity meditation to the foundations of mindfulness and the Noble Eightfold Path, aims at one goal: to see mind as phenomena without self, without a creator, while still acknowledging that karma is made and results arise. This very seeing is the root of transformation. The Buddha taught the mind is hard to grasp and often wanders after sense desires. Whoever tames that mind is freed from Mara. But taming does not mean forcing. It means seeing clearly, not clinging, not identifying. Then the mind settles by itself. This is an important principle. There is no need to control the mind, only to understand it. No need to manufacture a new mind, only to let delusion fall away. No need to look for a creator of mind, only to live with the mind as it is. When it arises, know it arises. When it ceases, know it ceases, without interference or clinging. Living this way, the practitioner is not driven by karma or dragged by the mind. Instead, they live freely within the current of mind, not submerged, not deluded, not creating further karma. Thus peace arises and wisdom grows. A simple example from daily life: when insulted, an ordinary person will generate anger. Think, he insulted me. Then react and speak harshly, creating karma. But one with mindfulness will see contact arises, painful feeling arises, perception arises, formations arise, and then an angry mind is about to arise. Right then they recognize it, see clearly that anger has not yet arisen or is just arising. They do not follow it or cling to it, and the anger dissolves. In this way, no one needs to control the mind. Mere clear seeing allows the unwholesome mind to fade and prevents unwholesome karma from arising. This is precisely how the mind is transformed, not by creating a new mind, but by keeping the mind awake, seeing it clearly, so that wholesome states arise naturally and unwholesome states cease naturally, like a stream running clear. No one needs to filter it. It is enough not to muddy it. This may sound simple, yet it is the secret of liberation. Most people suffer because they chase the mind, fight the mind, or try to control the mind, whereas the practitioner simply sees the mind does not cling to it, does not create karma, and thus gains inner freedom. So what is practice? It is living awake with the mind moment by moment, not mastering, not controlling, only seeing and letting go, and thereby the mind becomes pure. The Buddha taught, whoever lives mindfully lives as if dead yet not dead, for such a mind no longer creates karma, no longer takes rebirth, and no longer suffers. This is life in non-self, not searching for who creates the mind, not searching for who controls it, but living within the Dhamma, so that mind is just mind, and liberation is complete. Relinquishment of self-clinging. One important practice is mindfulness in everyday activities. When eating, know whether desire arises. When hearing, know whether aversion arises. When thinking, know whether wandering thoughts arise. Do not resist and do not follow, just see. Gradually one experiences the mind like wind passing through. No need to hold it, no need to drive it away. Just know it and the wind goes. Then one lives freely in the world, no longer suffering because of mind, no longer suffering because of self. For self is the illusion that clings to mind. When the mind is seen as non-self, the self has nowhere to cling. In short, practice is not to search for who creates the mind, but to see the mind clearly release self-clinging and live awake, taming the mind with wisdom. Mind creates karma, yet mind has no maker. Karma yields results, yet there is no one who receives them. There are only phenomena in operation. Seeing this is liberation. One who lives this way, though still alive in the world, no longer lives in suffering, no longer suffers because of the mind, no longer identifies with the mind, no longer deluded about self. That is true freedom, not bestowed by anyone, not needing anyone to control, but gained by seeing phenomena as they truly are and abiding in stable peace. To clarify the path of transforming the mind through mindfulness, without controlling it, without seeking a maker of mind, but simply by seeing its operation. Let us look more deeply at a concrete example from daily life: anger. Anger is a common state easy to arise, and if misunderstood, easy to generate karma. Yet if we know how to observe it, anger becomes a precious opportunity to contemplate non-self, to understand clearly that mind is dependently arisen. It needs no creator and no me to rule it. And yet it still arises and ceases exactly in accord with conditions. Suppose you are at work and a colleague says something that irritates you. Immediately, a chain of mental events arises first. Contact the ear. Hears the sound, next feeling, an unpleasant sensation, then perception, the judgment that the person has insulted you, and after that formations, the urge to react, to answer back. Without mindfulness, what follows will be an angry mind along with harsh words and harmful actions that create unwholesome karma. The important point here is that there is no I controlling anger. Anger arises due to conditions. No one invites it and no one creates it. It comes into being when conditions are sufficient: contact, feeling, perception, formations. If you are alert, you will see this is contact, this is feeling, this is perception assigning the label insult, this is formation, the urge to react, and this is an angry mind arising. Precisely that seeing that clear awareness keeps you from identifying, keeps you from thinking I am angry, and lets you see only that an angry mind is arising. Thus, anger lacks the conditions to continue. It dissolves like clouds vanishing in the sky, not by being chased away, but simply by not being held. This is the principle of transforming the mind in the Buddha's teaching. Do not oppose it, do not follow it, do not try to control it. See it rightly, and the mind transforms on its own. For this reason, in the Satipatthana contemplation of mind, the Buddha teaches, when the mind has aversion, know the mind has aversion. When the mind is without aversion, know the mind is without aversion. Nothing more is required, no forced positivity, no straining to forgive, only to know clearly that anger is a phenomenon, not self. No, I is needed for anger to exist. It is purely conditional. Seeing in this way, anger fades, karma is not created, and suffering does not arise. The remarkable thing is that an angry mind needs no one to create it, yet it still arises and has power. But if no one aids it, if no one identifies with it, it ceases by itself, without any I intervening. This is the opposite of how people usually handle anger, either suppressing it or venting it. In both approaches, there is an I who is angry, an I who must manage it, an I who must win, and because there is an I, there is suffering. By contrast, the practitioner simply sees anger arise, no one inside it, no owner, and it pops like a wave's foam without resistance. Another example, you are sitting quietly and suddenly remember a painful event from the past. Perception arises, images appear. Painful feeling arises, then a sorrowful mind follows. Without alertness, you think I am suffering, I am sad, and you sink into lamentation, breeding, depression, and long-lasting mental distress. With mindfulness, however, you see this is perception, this is painful feeling, this is a sorrowful mind. Not me, only phenomena, no one inside it. Seeing in this way, sorrow finds no foothold. It does not harden into karma. It disperses like smoke on the wind. The crux is this mind is a phenomenon, not me. Suffering is a phenomenon, not me. No one needs to create suffering, no one needs to bear it. There are only conditions, and seeing the conditions, suffering falls away. This is the power of mindfulness, seeing phenomena as they are without self-clinging, without creating karma, without suffering. From this, it can be said that every mental state is an opportunity for practice. There is no need to avoid bad mind states or to chase good ones. Simply see them with mindfulness and do not identify. When joy arises, know that a joyful mind is arising. Do not cling. When sadness arises, know that a sorrowful mind is arising. Do not resist. When delusion arises, know that a deluded mind is arising. Do not identify. All are mind, all are phenomena, not I. No one creates them, no one controls them. They are purely conditional, and to see the conditions is to be free. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha teaches that one who lives watchfully with the mind is like a gatekeeper who sees who comes and goes, obstructing none, following none, only seeing. Such a person is not bound by the mind, not governed by karma, not dragged by suffering. This is the beautiful image of the practitioner, not the master of the mind, not the victim of the mind, but the one who sees the mind as it is. When it arises, know it arises. When it ceases, know it ceases. Living serene and unattached. In short, anger, sorrow, and joy are all ceaselessly arising and ceasing states of mind. They need no creator and contain no I. But if they are not clearly seen, attachment develops, karma is made, and suffering arises. If they are clearly seen with mindfulness, the mind does not master us. We do not master the mind, and both notions dissolve, only wakefulness remains, and that is freedom. A practitioner does not need to control the mind. They need only live with the mind in lucidity. Let the mind be like a stream of water, neither resisting nor grasping, and it settles by itself. Karma withers and suffering ends. Having passed through analysis, direct experience, and observation of the mind from theory to practice, from dependent arising to mindfulness, we can now conclude clearly, mind is a dependently arisen phenomenon. There is no one who creates it, and no one need control it yet. It still operates, still creates karma, still yields results. To understand this fully and deeply, not just intellectually, but by wisdom, releases the practitioner completely from the illusion of a self that rules the mind, thereby ending the suffering bound up with mind and moving steadily toward liberation. First, it must be emphasized once more, no one creates the mind. Mind is not produced by a sole deity, creator, or me. Mind is dependently arisen through contact, feeling, perception, formations, name and form, consciousness and past karma coming together. When conditions are sufficient, mind arises. When conditions end, it ceases. There is no center, no one holding the reins. In the discourse on the characteristic of non-self, the Buddha teaches very clearly, mind is impermanent, subject to decay, and not subject to control. Therefore, mind is not me, not mine, not myself. This is not an abstract philosophical claim, but an experiential truth. Simply practice meditation and observe the mind, and you will see it. No need for mere belief or speculation. Next, it must be affirmed, mind is not a person that creates karma, but mind is the factor that does create karma. That is, there is no I doing karma, yet intention arises in the mind. Mental factors, operate actions, occur, and karma is formed. Karma needs no subject. As soon as wholesome or unwholesome mind states arise, karma is created. Therefore, there is no doer and no receiver, yet karma still exists, and results still occur exactly in line with causality. The key point is that karma and results do not violate the principle of non-self. Some mistakenly think that if there is no self, there is no one to receive results, and cause and effect no longer operate. But the Buddha taught that causality needs no doer or recipient. As long as there are conditions, results arise. Fire burns without anyone doing the burning. It only needs the conditions of fuel, wind, and flame. In the same way, a wholesome mind is a condition for good results. An unwholesome mind is a condition for bad results. There is no one inside it, only phenomena in operation. So where does the meaning of practice lie? Precisely in this. Although the mind has no owner, it can be transformed not by free will, but by understanding mindfulness and wisdom. When there is mindfulness, the practitioner sees mind arise, and cease does not cling, does not chase after it, does not create new karma, and does not prolong suffering. This is true liberation, not that I am liberated, but that the mind no longer manufactures karma. The stream of birth and death stops. There is no one who is born or dies, only the cessation of phenomena. Knowing this, how should one live in practice? One no longer hunts for someone to control the mind, no longer worries about who makes karma, but lives awake with one's own mind. Moment by moment, one clearly sees mind and its conditions without self-clinging. When mind arises, know it is mind arising, not I am thinking. When mind ceases, know it is mind ceasing, not I am lost. When there is no longer an I in the mind, one no longer suffers because of the mind is no longer entangled in karma and no longer fears birth and death. This is the state of the awakened one who has clearly seen non-self and relinquished clinging. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha teaches, whoever sees mind as mind, not as self, no longer clings, no longer creates karma, and no longer takes rebirth. That is final liberation, not that I am freed, but that the mind's fabrications are fully extinguished with no further arising of phenomena and no further arising of suffering. One point must be understood clearly. Seeing non-self does not make a practitioner passive. On the contrary, precisely because there is non-self, the mind can change, karma can be ended, and liberation is possible. If there were a self, the mind would be fixed, karma would be fixed, and training would be impossible. Because there is non-self, everything depends on conditions. It can be trained, transformed, and truly freed. This is the foundation for energy, for mindfulness, and for the Noble Eightfold Path. In short, there is no person who makes the mind, no person who does karma, and no person who receives results, yet everything still unfolds by conditions, by the law of phenomena. The practitioner does not look for who creates mind, but for which conditions bring mind into being and which conditions bring it to cessation, and from there lives wakefully releases. Self-clinging does not create karma and does not generate suffering. This is supreme wisdom, seeing phenomena as they truly are, free from delusion, no longer bound by the mind, and no longer suffering in samsara. After a deep inquiry into the question, if mind creates karma, then who creates the mind? We can now see plainly that no one creates the mind, no one controls the mind, and there is no I who owns or uses the mind. All is just phenomena, a process operating through dependent arising and cause and effect, without a subject, without self, without soul. Directly realizing this is the basis for transforming suffering, living free in the current of mind, unbound by fantasies and the illusion of a self that controls. We can say that the question, who creates mind, springs from the habit of self-clinging, from the need for a stable center to lean on control and command. But looking straight at reality with the light of mindfulness and wisdom, we recognize that every notion of I and of a maker of mind is an illusion. No such entity exists. There is only the stream of mind, like flowing water, like blowing wind, like passing clouds arising and ceasing. No one needs to command it. No one needs to create it. Precisely because there is no one inside the mind can be transformed. If there were an unchanging I, training would be impossible because everything would already be fixed. But because the mind is non-self, we can watch it, let it go, and tame it not by the will of me, but by lucid awareness, so that the mind becomes clear, serene, and free from suffering. This is true freedom, not the power to control everything, but the freedom of not being dragged about and not being bound, because there is no self left to be bound. Seeing clearly that mind is non-self, the practitioner no longer suffers on account of the mind. No longer I am angry, I am sad, I am in pain, but simply sees an angry mind is arising, a sorrowful mind is arising, a desirous mind is arising, and then they cease with no one inside them. And the wonder is this: when there is no one in the mind cannot bind or control us, because we no longer cling to it, no longer identify with it. There is no me in it. This is the core of the teaching on non-self. Liberation is not the power to control the mind, but the relinquishment of self. No identification with the mind, no creation of karma, no arising of suffering. Such a person neither chases after the mind nor fights it, but lives with it as with a guest arriving and departing like clouds across the sky, leaving no trace, no karma, no suffering. The Buddha taught no one defiles another and no one purifies another. Each person trains their own mind by seeing the Dhamma, by living mindfully, by understanding non-self. This is the clear affirmation that no one is master of our mind and no one can save us. Only by seeing the mind clearly, living in accordance with the Dhamma and releasing self-clinging, does the mind become pure and free from suffering. Thus the question, who creates mind, when illuminated by wisdom, dissolves on its own, for there is no one at all. There are only phenomena arising and ceasing, as they are needing no maker and no controller. At that point, the practitioner no longer doubts, seeks, or chases after theories, but lives right in the present reality, with the mind here and now, seeing it, knowing it, without identification, without self-clinging, without creating karma, without suffering. This is the highest freedom, unconditional peace, nibbana in the midst of life, not bestowed by anyone, not manufactured but realized by releasing self, living mindfully, and letting the mind become naturally clear, like a still lake unruffled by waves of delusion. In sum, mind needs no maker, karma needs no doer, and results need no recipient. There are only phenomena, only conditions, only mindfulness. See things as they are. And that is the path of liberation, not through theory but through direct realization. Live awake with the mind, moment by moment, neither master nor victim, simply the one who sees clearly and lives without suffering, without self, without bonds.